Howdy. Today we're talking about being independent. Independent as in independent trucker. And I have an opportunity to compare my financials between the two jobs, so to speak, right? When I was an owner-operator with a company, owning my own truck and my own trailer, well, leasing, but capital lease, so it's mine at the end, same as financing, versus me now being owner-operator and being the owner of my own little outfit. Now, first of all, these numbers will not be helpful to everybody because I run a pretty specialized operation, right? I'm Canadian, I'm a citizen of Canada, so all I can do is I can either move loads inside Canada or I can take loads between Canada and US. I cannot move loads inside US. That's how it works for Canadians. It's the same way, by the way, for Americans. If they come to Canada, they cannot move loads inside Canada. But that's fine with me because these loads usually pay better than loads inside US because I find that American drivers are not that keen on going to Canada. They don't like dealing with customs, you know. So it's like that's my niche. Pretty much Canada to US, US to Canada. There's not that many loads inside Canada, so my specialty is just international cross-border trucking with the IGN lowboy trailer. The first comparison will be with the Mack, a 4-axle truck Mack, which was a bit weaker, so smaller engine and smaller front axle and a single frame and shorter wheelbase, right? And then now the second comparison you will see, the second set of numbers are with the Kenworth truck, which is heavier but also more expensive, and so fuel mileage is worse, but now I can haul heavier loads because it has a 20K front axle and slightly longer wheelbase, 254 inches versus 244. And I wish I could make it a bit longer because then it would help with heavier loads, but Ontario, Canada, we're pretty much stuck at 244, and even 254, you know, I was just following the example of a big local company that was using 254 wheelbase in Canada for their heavy haul department, you know, and so I cannot go too long, so that's what it is. So if you're an American and you're watching this video and you can move loads inside US, you will definitely make more money because the rates are not probably that different, but there's just the availability of loads. You know, I was running a comparison for a friend who lives in Florida, and let's say I looked at the loads from all US to Ontario, and I think I had like 20 loads for my trailer on my load board. And then I ran a similar search, but let's say 200-mile radius of Jacksonville, Florida to anywhere, US, Canada, and I had 800 loads. So 20 loads for me, 800 loads for my American friend, and that's a huge difference. And that's why if you're an American, you will definitely make more money than me. And so if you're an American, don't laugh at these numbers. This is what I get as a Canadian trucker operating between Canada and US. Like, the purpose of this video is just to compare, is it worth going independent? And that's kind of like a universal question. It doesn't matter if you're Canadian or American, right? So why did I go independent? I got tired of being sitting at home for weeks on end because the company where I was leased as owner operator, they had company trucks, and that was my only choice. After I left Landstar, I couldn't find anything else. I went with these guys and I stayed with them like for I don't know, 3.5 years. And I always say, when people ask me, I say never go to work for a company that has company drivers, okay, because they will always make more money on their own trucks, and so the best loads will go to company guys, right? And that's reason number one, because I just wasn't making enough money. I was sitting too much, you know. And reason number two, and probably the most important, is that I want to be my own boss, you know. I want to make decisions. Like, I call these guys, they give me a very bad load. I call them and like, basically, why the rate is so low? Oh, you don't like it, go home, call us next week, you know. Like, in theory, all these companies, when you're an owner operator, you're supposed to have a non-forced dispatch. Otherwise, what's the freaking point, right? So you're supposed to call them, and in theory you're supposed to choose. Let's say the guy has 3 loads and you say, okay, I don't want this one, but in real life it never works, because these guys are so busy, you know, unless you work for a very, very small company. So these guys are super busy, and so if you say no to one load, he has to find somebody for that load, because he already found the load. He probably has already a commitment with to the broker, right? So now he puts you back at the bottom of the line, of the like waiting line, right? And now he finds somebody for that load, then he finds somebody for the next load. But basically, usually they don't even do that. They start screaming at you, you know. So you don't like it, go home. And I remember the most frustrating point was I was sitting 1,000 miles away from home in Thunder Bay, and this guy gives me a super cheap load, you know, but you know, low boy load, and it goes into a bad area, it goes into Quebec, and the rate was awful. And I say, what's going on? Oh, I don't like it, go home. I said, 1,000 miles, go home. And then actually the boss of the dispatch, that was the dispatch, and then the boss says, Sergey, if you don't like it, you know, what we're doing, maybe you should register, you know, your own company, just go independent. And that's what I did. So reason number one, be the boss, be in charge. And I gotta make a note here that this is not for everybody, right? You gotta be kind of like pushy in a good way. You gotta know how to work with the money, you gotta know how to work with people. Basically, I think the statistics was it's like 10% of Americans are self-employed. So a lot of people prefer a dispatcher setup where they are given a load, they don't want to call, they just sit at home and they say, hey, I'll find a company that gives me loads, and he just sits and everything is done for him. If that's you, you can just stop this video and go eat an ice cream or something. But if you feel that you can be self-employed, that you know you're aggressive, you know how to sell yourself and your truck, you think you can learn how to find loads, then this video might be of interest. Now my bookkeeping system, a few people asked me about this when I posted this idea on Facebook, asking about people's opinion if I can do this, if I should do this video. People were asking me about my bookkeeping system, and I gotta tell you that I tried software, I tried accounting you know, programs, and they were too complicated. Not because I'm stupid or something, but because I just have one truck, one trailer. You know, I use my regular checking account, just to have a separate account at my bank, and my company is in my name. You know, I try to keep it simple. So my principle is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So I use the envelope system, you know. So each month I grab a new envelope and I write the month and year, and that's where I collect all my receipts, right? And then also now, as a trucker, as an independent trucker, I got these 2 kind of like journals, notepads, right? One is for my miles when I cross the state line or country border, and the other one is for fueling. So over here I got states, like each state has a couple of pages and then alphabetical order, so I write down my fuel. I need this for IFTA, right? to report my fuel tax. And then at the end of the month, let's say now today is July 30th, so I'll probably do it tomorrow. I'll just sit down and I have a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet on the computer with for each year. Like each year I start a new spreadsheet. It's at the top it has months, you know, like January, February, March, and on the left side the rows have my expenses, like, you know, well, not expenses, but let's say revenue, truck repairs, you know, like for each month, right? And then at the end of the year I sum it all up, you know, because it's a spreadsheet, you can do it automatically, right? And then I have a clear picture, you know, how much I spent on the truck, on the trailer, you know, on tolls, stuff like that. And then I file my taxes once a year. But because I'm in Canada and our system is a bit different than in the States, we are allowed to claim the sales tax portion of everything I spent on the truck. Like any fuel purchases, any repairs, anything small I buy that is justified as a business expense. If I get it in Canada, not in US, but only if I get it in Canada and there's a sales tax in there, I can claim that sales tax. And so every month I do a quick, very easy return, which shows, you know, basically they just want to know your revenue for the month and how much you're claiming. You know, like, did you collect HST, the sales tax, or did you pay out HST? And because I never collected, because in Canada you only collect HST, you have to charge the sales tax only if you deal with a direct shipper, which pretty much never happens, you know. I always deal with freight brokers, and that, you know, price they pay you, like I charge them a fee, let's say $1,000, I don't have to add this 13%, right? So, and because I never collect it, otherwise they look at the difference, right? How much you collected versus how much you paid out, and that's what you have to either pay to the government or they pay you. But because I never collected, I'm always in the refund position, right? And so each month I collect like $1,000, $2,000, you know, Canadian in revenue, which is about 700 to 1400 US, right? And so all this, all the money you will see, all the amounts you will see is just one second, I gotta check out this. Did they approve me or not? We have received. Okay, they approved my crossing for Peace Bridge. I'm still sitting in Scranton, PA here, waiting for my New York permit, but at least my Peace Bridge permit was approved. So what was I saying? That yeah, so I always get the HST refund, but also, and because of that, when I do my bookkeeping, you know, those expenses, I never include sales tax. Sales tax is separate. So so again, probably in US, let's say if you're paying $2,000 for a truck, let's say, or $3,000, there'll be HST, there'll be your local sales tax, right? So probably you will include that. And so I just want to remind you guys that because I'm in Canada, I'm kind of like saving on that, right? Because sales tax is refunded. So all these amounts, truck repairs, fuel, well, as long as they're in Canada. If I do it in US, I cannot claim it. So so if the purchases or expenses were in the States, they include sales tax. If they're in Ontario, they don't include it. What's different when booking loads? I'm looking at my little outline here. Well, since now I'm independent, I'm just using one load board. I tried to get another one, Canada specific. They did not like me that I move all the time. I said, you know, I'm gonna use my computer from all kinds of states and provinces. They didn't like that. They wanted to have an office address, and I said, that's BS, that's not gonna work for me. I'm the only guy. I'm the president, I'm the owner, I'm the driver, I'm the mechanic, I'm the security, I'm the hairdresser consultant, so I'm everything. And so I'm using one load board, and I'm just booking loads from the load board. Now my best month at the previous company, surprisingly, it's the same month, just the best month when I was an owner operator was in June 2017, and right before I left that company. And the best month now until now, and I only started recently, right? I only did a few months in like October, November in 2017, and some December with the Mac, and then I sold the Mac, and I was sitting for 3 months doing nothing. So I only started in March. So March, April, May, and now it's we almost in August, right? And so far my best month was June this year. Now self-promotion is important when you are independent. So sometimes I get calls from people that watch my YouTube channel, and I think it adds you know, some authority. And I also run and of course most of my videos are trucking specific, and also I have a Instagram account where I basically post pictures of my loads. And so when sometimes people ask me, you know, how long have you been doing this, like freight brokers? I said, okay, if you want to see my loads, check out my Instagram. And so on my Instagram I deleted everything non-essential. Like, you know, some people put like pictures of food, you know, their girlfriend, ice cream, whatever, you know. I just deleted everything. I think I have one picture where I show something. I have a picture of a protein bar that I need as a trucker. But everything else is just pictures of my loads, and that's how it's supposed to be. You know, your channel, your Instagram is supposed to have one topic and one topic only, and that's what I did. And I use that as proof of my experience. And then of course I have my business cards. I got them from Vistaprint. You guys have vistaprint.com. We have vistaprint.ca in Canada. And t-shirts, I got them from Vistaprint. I just wish that I would get large size. I don't know, I thought a medium will work, but they're a bit too tight. But they can do, I designed this myself, like, you know, you find the design you like, you just enter the fields with your text. But they're pretty expensive. But also had a hat, the white hat. I did not like it. It gets dirty too fast, and it's also expensive. So some of my YouTube fans sent me this, so thank you. How much equipment you need? Well, I should say that I would definitely say that like my original plan was to go with 7 axles, right, just to haul somewhere, you know, basically around 50-55 ton mark. And now I got this additional axle because sometimes you need that. But I would say the most profitable probably in this area, like heavy haul, probably just stick to 7 axles, just like I wanted, because this flip axle sometimes can be a pain in the butt. Sometimes I just, like now, I have an 80,000 pound excavator. I had to drop it and run on 8 axles, so of course burning more fuel because it was in the way of the boom, right? I need to be able to lower the boom. I know, make my height as low as possible, and the flip was in the way. And also that flip axle, 4 tires, 4 wheels, all aluminum, weighs 3,000 pounds. You know, so sometimes that makes a big difference, you know, like in Ohio, for example, where they don't want you to go with a setup like this, 8 axles, if you don't have a Jeep or Stinger, you know. And I think the limit is either 130,000 or 135,000. And so if I don't have a flip axle, I can go, you know. If I have a flip axle, I'm too heavy, let's say. Well, like with this excavator, because right now I'm about 133. So if this load was going into Ohio, I don't know, I would have to drop the flip, you know. So I think ideally you want to be above the 35 ton guys, you know, because the most popular trailer is a 35 double drop, right? And those guys usually they just run either 5 or 6 axles, and depending on how heavy their truck is, usually they can only go up to like 68,000 pounds in terms of a payload, right? And so if you can do, let's say, 70 to 80 to 85, you know, that's where the money is, you know. So now I can do up to probably 95, but I'm always running into issues because my truck is heavy. So it's important to keep your truck light, you know. So plans for the future. plans for the future is keep trucking. I wanted to update the trailer, maybe add a Stinger, maybe start saving for a Jeep. I don't want to do that. I'm very happy with my truck, even though it's a bit heavy, but that's what you have to basically, you pay for the convenience and the power. So of course there's always advantages and disadvantages, right? But Mack would work with this stuff for 50-55 ton. Even a 13-liter engine would work, but you need at least 1860 torque. But most importantly, you need a big front axle, you know. Like, I never thought I would be saying this, but well, actually I wanted to get 16,000 on the front on the Mack, but back when I was buying a truck, it was not available, you know. And me personally, I like setback axle trucks because it's just easier to move the weight forward, you know. I don't know, like you know, Kenworth, Western Star, even Freightliner, you know, Mack, it doesn't matter. Mack was actually great despite all its shortcomings, but it was great as an entry-level truck that allowed me to start all this, right? Without the Mack, because it was a 4-axle truck, it had 18-speed transmission, it was 1860 torque. So even though it was noisy and a bit weak, but you can still climb a hill with 80,000 pounds or 85,000 pounds. I did a couple of loads where I was over 90,000 pounds, and it worked. So don't be too afraid of small engines. Just realize that, of course, everybody will be passing you on hills and it'll take forever, but your fuel mileage will be better. Like on my Mack, despite the heavy loads from day one, I never reset the counter. My average fuel mileage was 5.9 miles per gallon US. Okay, this one of course is worse because it's heavier and it has 605 horsepower, but it's much more rewarding to drive as a driver, but you burn more fuel, right? But people do like it. Like, people come over here, I like your truck. I did not get that with the Mack, you know. So there you go. So yeah, I'm not changing the truck, and I thought of changing the trailer because I got tired of this drop side rail design, but then I realized that most loads, actually I like hauling heavy stuff. It just, you know, makes me feel kind of important. I like driving, I like operating these machines, and all this big stuff is usually is perfectly fitted for a drop side rail trailer. Like even 80,000 pound excavator, and I'm even lower than legal height, you know. So, which is cool. And so I decided to keep the trailer. Maybe when it's paid off, maybe I'll get a flat deck trailer, you know, like maybe, I don't know, 50 ton or something, but we'll see. So I prefer, again, you know, I like this KISS principle. I like to keep it simple, and I tried having 2 trailers before when I had a Mack, right? Or even in international, I had the flatbed and step deck, and it's always a pain in the butt, you know. It's always better to keep it simple, you know, 1 truck, 1 trailer, no drivers. That's how I like it. Like, you start adding drivers, it's much more hassle, much more headaches, and you just spend the extra money on anti-stress pills, and then your pharmacy likes you, but what's the point? And so yeah, so plans for the future are to gross 30 to 40,000 a month US, pay off debts which I collected over the years, build up savings, and buy a piece of land somewhere in the States, grab a couple of 40-foot containers, build a house, sell, buy a bigger piece of land, and then retire. So those are the plans. So now let's look at the actual income comparison. Okay, so here we go. Income comparison: SERGEI DRATCHEV owner operator versus SERGEI DRATCHEV heavy haul. So on in the middle you see June 2017, on the right June 2018. All of the numbers were converted from Canadian into US currency using 0.77 factor, and there you go. So this is me as owner operator, this is me as independent, right? So as you can see, the revenue jumped up from 20,000 to 26, almost 27,000 on the trucking side. And thanks in a big part to my new truck, my YouTube revenue, I just decided to show this, jumped up from 1,200 to 3,000. This is all US. Now repairs, doesn't matter if you have a old truck, new truck, there's always repairs. Actually, for some reason, in June I got more repairs, 2,300 versus 1,200 with the Mac. So this was with the Mac, right? But I was doing lots of upgrades on the trailer. If you remember, I don't know if it was this month, I was installing that right weight gauge. I was flipping tires, you know, there's always something. But so yeah, the expenses are bigger. So fuel, almost 50% more. It was $2,900 in June 2017, and it's $4,700 in June 2018. Now truck lease, this is Mac, this is Kenworth, right? Again, without the sales tax, so much higher, $1,400 higher. But this is, I want to make a little disclaimer, my payments for the Kenworth will go down in December. They're just using this accelerated payment plan for the first 6 months, because I did not give them 10% down. I gave them like 13-14% down, and they said they're gonna take, you know, take the rest what I owe them during the first 6 months. So after December it'll go down, I think, by about like $700 or even more, you know. So flip axle is the same, $308 a month. RGN is the same, $1,300 a month. Tolls, for some reason this month I didn't pay too much tolls, so it was $578 over there. Office expenses, this is where I put like my, I don't know, envelopes or mail or something, you know, like I buy paper. So it's just a couple of bucks, no big deal. Now I'm still leasing my laptop. I got it as a kind of like financing, so I gotta buy it out because this is crazy. I know they charge me a lot of interest, but it's the same, 59 bucks. Now I did not have personal insurance. I think they were saying something that I was supposed to have it, but because I worked for a company, it was okay. But now when I'm going into US, and when I registered with Landstar as carrier, they insisted that I got health insurance specifically for travel in US, right? So that you see, that's the expense I did not have before. Now truck insurance, another big difference. When I worked for this company's owner operator, they paid insurance. There was no insurance on my end. So now I paid a bunch of money and my record is clean. Like usually they say, you know, like over here in Canada, they want to have 3 years of a clean driving record, and that's what I have. I have clean record, but the insurance jumped up by about 800 bucks Canadian, or 550 US after I changed trucks. And when I complained about this, they said, well, your Mac was you know, like almost 3 years old, right? And the buyout was like 60 grand Canadian, versus this one I just got, and it's 225,000 Canadian. And by the way, one note is that I always tell people that if you want to save money, you should come to Canada to buy a truck. Like our prices are so much lower. Like for example, you cannot buy a truck like this for 225,000 Canadian in US. It will be 225 US minimum. So usually, for some reason, that's what I find, that prices in the States are the same or very close. Like the number is very close, but it'll be US currency, which of course Canada is 1.3 times cheaper, you know. But we still have the, you know, 13% tax, you know, like in Ontario, sales tax. But I still think it's, if I was an American, you know, I would look into this of buying a truck in Canada, because the emissions are the same, you know. Of course you have a speedometer in kilometers, but you still have miles, and then you can set up your digital speedometer, either metric or miles. I just keep it in metric because that's what I grew up with, right? But anyway, also licensing and permits, you see they showed up because over here they charge us $200 every 2 weeks. No, I think it was actually more than this, but basically we paid for the plates. So now I pay not only for the plates but for permits. And I think actually over here I did not include the plates, but my plate fee was higher than with that company because, you know, they were a fleet. They had about like 10 trucks. They had one truck, right? And I think my first year when I got these plates, it cost me, like, Ontario is very expensive. I think I paid like 3,600 Canadian, which is hold on, 36 times 77, so $2,700 US I paid, right? So if you divide that by 12, so that's another 230 bucks. But you know, that's not such a big deal. But so this actually should be a little bit even higher. Oh, and before, with that company, I did not pay permits. But the way it worked is, let's say somebody's paying us, I don't know, let's say $5,000, and it's oversized load, and there's they just take the permits off the top. You know, let's say the guy deducts, I don't know, 1,500 bucks, and then what's left is 3,500, and then they were paying me my commission, so to speak, right? I think I was paid 78%. And so that's why there was no permits. I never tracked permits, right? Permits were coming off the top, but also I didn't pay insurance. So now I'm paying for permits, and that's why I put them in this category, licensing and permits. And then phone, because I do YouTube, right? But I also make a lot of money on YouTube, like comparatively, right? That's why my phone bills, which is also includes internet, are pretty high. Travel, these are hotels. For some reason over here I didn't go to any hotel. But also I wanted to mention that I find that with this Kenworth, I don't feel like I want to go to a hotel as often as when I had a Mac, because, you know, Mac was just a metal box in here. There was no windows. I couldn't open that. I couldn't open this, you know. It was very stuffy, and of course the truck was pretty much the same color. It was like dark gray, almost black, so it was very hot. And so I think now I spend less money on hotels, you know. But oh, and parking is the same. I paid to a lady. She has a big property where she rents spaces to trucks, so this is 138. She increased the price by about 20 bucks. Before I think it was like 120, now it became 138. And before I didn't have to pay for the load board because all loads were given to me by dispatcher, and now I have to do this. And also now it's obligatory. I have to do drug and alcohol testing. Well, I don't do it. They have this random selection, right? I think I did it once when I joined, when I started the business, but every month I still have to pay the fee to this company that does drug and alcohol testing, right? So there's definitely more fees, but there's definitely more opportunities for income. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, the reason number one I became independent is because I want to make my own decisions. You know, I want to be the boss. I want to be the owner. I want to have my own bill of ladings with my name. And I like working with people. I just don't like working with idiots. And like the previous company, I did not trust them 100%. Sometimes I suspect, let's say, the customer is paying them in US dollars. They tell me it's Canadian dollars, you know, stuff like that. Or they can, they never showed me proof of permits, right? They just say, hey, permits cost 2,000 bucks Canadian. Like, there was never any itemization, no details given. So I don't know, was it really 2,000 or was it 1,000, you know? So it's, you know, when you yourself, you work by yourself, there's only you can blame, right? I just like it that way much better. But again, it cannot, it's not for everybody. Money pretty much is, as you can see, money can be comparable. especially if you're an American, where you guys have much more loads. But it's just the freedom, you know, like the freedom to choose your own path, you know, your own loads, where you want to go. You don't have to ask anybody for permission. That's my main motivation. And so if I don't want to work, I don't have to call anybody and ask, would it be okay? No, I just shut down the truck, lock the doors, and I go to Florida, let's say when it gets too cold in Canada, you know. And by the way, that's my also plan. I don't want to work 12 months or 11 months. I want to work 10 months. And again, I'm able to set these plans because I'm independent. So during the coldest month of the year, I just want to go south somewhere, spend some time with my camera, you know, take time off, you know, regroup. Because February, especially February and the first couple of weeks in March, can be awful. You know, there's a lot of snow, it's super cold, and there's not that much work, you know, and you're just sitting there freezing your butt off and you make no money. And that's all I wanted to say. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it useful. I'm not gonna leave, I'm gonna disable comments, because they're gonna be some idiotic comments from people that cannot fathom the idea of paying for a YouTube video. But for everybody else, thanks for watching.